Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Edna White, your host of Unchurched. And today we're going to be tackling something that all of us probably heard but didn't really get into. It's when your faith or your religion hurts your mental health. And I know that we don't like to talk about that, but we're going to be talking about it today. Um, have you ever, had to reclaim your faith in the very identity that people said you had and sworn that you had? You didn't know that you had. You're confused, right? You use your spiritual authority and the tools of manipulation, and you found out you weren't who you were. So, we're going to be talking about that today. This is the hard truth about this freedom we are talking about today on Unchurched. This week, we're privileged to host a prophetic truth teller and author, HAE the Prophet, to
Thank you.
discuss her 20-year journey through the darkest shadows of religious culture. Harmony, and I use that as her other name, I want to call her Prophet Harmony, shares her
How
own
you doing,
spiritual
Miss?
wounds. We're not just
Yes.
emotional, but formative, a result of manipulation masked in mentorship, loyalty tests, and
Mhm.
devastating impact of dealing with sexual molestation by religious leaders. Harmony dives into a philosophy that healing doesn't mean hating the church, it means reclaiming your voice.
Mhm.
We pull back the curtain on the performance of culture, explore her books, including Read Me the Filth.
Mhm.
Read Me for
For
Filth.
fifth.
I like
Mhm.
that. That's even
Mhm.
better. And confront the insidious danger of spiritual narcissism. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I'm appreciative that you have allowed this platform
Yeah,
for us to have a truthful and honest conversation
yeah,
about some
absolutely.
of the things that hurt, but you can heal.
Yeah, that's the best thing. That is the most important thing. They do hurt and you can heal. So I'm
Mhm.
excited to have that talked
Yeah.
about. So you mentioned that your church hurt wasn't just emotional, but truly formative. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I grew up in a what we call the church family, right? And so my uncle was a pastor of a prominent church in my hometown.
Mhm.
He was known for wearing the all white suits. I'm start telling my age here in a minute. So he had the all white suit with the all white shoes and the white tie, but he had that one gold tooth in his mouth. He was the famous, the well, we'll say famous,
Yes.
because when you're dealing with church culture and
Hmm.
especially our culture,
Right.
um, sometimes leadership can be exchanged for entertainment,
Right.
um, being popular, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
he was one of the prominent pastors in my city and where I grew up. And so my family, I grew up in church. So it is more than 20 years that I have been around church and church
Yeah.
stuff. But I walked away from the
Right.
church. As soon as I got out of high school, I decided that wasn't for me. And
Right.
there were some things that happened, in my household with the church, and I'm sure we'll get into those, that led me to believe I didn't need God. So I'm not one of those prophets that has the story that they love God from the womb, and they fell asleep reading Bible scriptures. No, I'm
Yeah.
not one of those prophets.
Yeah.
I am the prophet that actually, by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I actually hated God.
Mm.
I hated God because I saw God work for other people on Sundays, but it didn't work for me in my house,
Right.
where my mother was popular. My mother was known as the Hat Lady, and I couldn't figure out if you could see everybody at church, why nobody saw her or what was going on with me and
Right.
my other siblings in the house.
Hmm.
Um, Church filled with prophets, but none of them could see, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
I decided that I didn't need God at about
Yeah.
8 or 9 years old. By the time I was 8, I had already attempted a murder. Um, And when the murder didn't work, and I really tried to kill him. Like I
Mm-hmm.
really, as an 8-year-old,
Right.
had the mentality of if I stab him hard enough,
Yeah.
he'll die.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it didn't work. And then when I could not kill him, I actually attempted to kill myself
Right.
at 8 years old. Um, and so have had a relationship with God since I was a child. We didn't start off, the prophet that you see now is not how I started off as a child or even as a young adult. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so church trauma, there is two sides of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Um, and because I have now healed, I advocate for both sides.
Right.
There is a such thing as church trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that happen in church that cause agony, that cause pain. But on the
Absolutely.
radical side of self awareness, once we get older and once we mature to a certain point, we have to take some responsibility about there may have been some things about us that we allowed,
Mm-hmm.
even if we did know better,
Right.
we allowed it. So we
Right.
have to take accountability for ourselves as well.
Right. Okay. All right. Can you describe the kind of high pressure, secrecy laden environment that allowed these profound spiritual wounds to take
Mm.
root?
So I'll give you my story, my back end
Okay.
story. Um, I was excommunicated from a church
Mm-hmm.
um, before 12.
Wow.
There's a viral video that's going on of a young girl right now,
Mm-hmm.
where she gives thanks to her stepmother, and they totally embarrassed this baby at the altar.
Mm-hmm.
It brought up the memory of me and my sister. We weren't allowed to do anything because, of course, back then you don't tell what go on in your house, and then you couldn't go
Right.
anywhere
That
just in
was a
case
secret.
you did
Yeah.
tell, right?
Whatever goes on in the house stays in the
Stays
house.
in the house. And
Mm-hmm.
so at one point, my uncle finally talked my mother into letting me and my sister join the children's choir at my uncle's church. And
Mm-hmm.
I was so happy. By then I had a friend, um, and the friend was on the bench after choir rehearsal, and she was talking about what her daddy did to show her love.
Mm-hmm.
In my ignorance, in my ignorance, I told what my dad, which was my stepfather,
Mm-hmm.
did to me to show me love, because that's how he presented it to me.
Right.
I didn't know that I was telling something
Right.
that I wasn't supposed to tell. I thought it was normal.
Right.
I thought it was normal because that's how I had been trained.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my friend, who was substantially older than me, went and told someone else, who told my aunt, who was the first lady, who told my uncle, who was the pastor. They sat me on the bench while they had a meeting with my mother. I don't know what happened in the meeting. I don't know what was said. I don't know, because I was never asked. I just know Sunday, the following Sunday, I was
Yeah.
called up to the altar to be prayed over for a lying spirit,
Mm.
and to be prayed over the family, that the family stay together. We bind the family so close together that nothing
Yeah.
will come, that prayer. And
Yeah.
I stood there and I wondered, how is it um, that you're pastoring and that you're preaching and that you're full of the Holy Ghost, but you don't see the lie. That same uncle actually got into it with my mother several times. He called us up to the front of the church one Sunday and told my mother to leave and never come back,
Wow.
with me and my sister at the altar. So my first excommunication from a church was as a child
Right.
and by a family member.
Right.
Um, that wasn't the first time well, that was the first time I was asked to leave a church, but it hadn't been the last time. So I've kind of been training forward since I was young.
Mm-hmm.
So that's trauma. That's trauma for a child.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I looked at that viral video that's going on of the little girl now, how they made her seem like a villain because she just gave thanks for her stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I saw the agony in her face,
Yeah.
in her body language.
Yeah.
Um, and so for someone to say church trauma is not real, then you're a funky lip liar.
Yeah.
because it is.
Yeah.
It very will, and that's the balance that we have to come to,
Right.
as we're dealing with these institutions, right?
Hmm.
We got to have a
That's what
hard
they are.
conversation.
That's
Yeah,
what
we
they
got to
are.
have the hard conversations. There, yet
Hmm.
you are the church. You're the little church, but there are some things that we could be doing better, as the church, as we're getting ready to fish for souls, or as we should
Hmm.
be fishing for souls.
Hmm.
Less entertainment, less ignorance, less performance, and
Hmm.
then let's really get back to fishing. But you got to have a heart to fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
got to have a
do.
heart to fish.
Yeah. I as you were talking about um the way that you kind of like told and you didn't even realize you told. Usually abuse, when you're a child, you're a child, and you're you sexually abused or however it is, you don't know because you're in that environment. And so a lot of times you are the one that, because of that rule, don't tell anything outside the
Hmm.
house, you're
Hmm.
made to look like the bad guy. You're
Right.
treated like the bad guy, and it's normalized. Then it
Hmm.
becomes normalized. So if anything ever happens again with whoever, you don't say anything, and that's with a lot of survivors.
Hmm.
No matter if it's at the church or in your home, it's really with a lot of survivors. But it's more hurtful because that the church is where the soul things happen, the spiritual things
Right.
happen, and it hurts you not linear but layers and layers of like,
Layers.
wow,
Layers.
here I am. I know I'm now I know I'm
Hmm.
being hurt at home, but now I'm this all encompassing so-called God is now not helping me,
Right.
and the person he set in front of me who's supposed to see and know and care and make me feel safe is not.
Right. So
All of
then
that
that
hurt,
brings.
and then the other people that join along. So it's a
Right.
collective. It's collective neglect. It's
Hmm.
collective neglect,
Hmm. Hmm.
abuse. It's
Hmm.
all of that. Manipulation, collective. So
Hmm.
with the church, it's more collective than it is, with the family.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's like more, if you tell your mom, she doesn't do anything about it, or that it's more kind of secretive and you don't tell anybody anymore. But this is a collective. Everyone, you're in front of the altar, and
Hmm.
everyone is joining in on the deception.
On your prayer for the lying spirit. Now
Yes,
imagine
on
having
you.
to
Yes,
navigate that,
they're
as a
all
child.
on the deception. They're in the
Hmm.
deception. So if you got 100 people in there, everybody's complicit.
Hmm.
Everybody is, because
Hmm.
they're so-called praying for you,
Right.
and they don't know, and they don't even know the situation. So you
Don't
see
know
how
half of it.
slippery slope that is. Like it's like, so now there's a secret there because they don't. The parishioners may not even know what's going on. They might not even know. Like
Hmm.
they hear that, but they
Hmm.
don't know the whole story. So
Right.
they're now pulled into this lie, and now made to, now you can't even trust. Now you can't trust them. You don't feel safe with any of them.
And
So
that's
it's a
exactly
collective.
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so just imagine being a child and being led with God into, being raped. There's
Yeah.
a line, I write poetry as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a line that I say, what do you do when your mama is a witch and your daddy is a warlock? And before unzipping his pants, he forces you to quote Psalm 23.
Right.
And so later in life, I found out that my stepfather couldn't even read.
Oh.
But he would keep me in the room for long periods of time to teach me the Bible.
Right.
And the only pericope of text he knew was Psalms.
Right.
And so, or Psalm 23.
Right.
And so people would marvel that I was young and I could pray and I could read King James fluently. They were excited about that part, but had
Mm.
no idea, the trauma that my body was
Behind it all.
going through
Oh yeah.
or my mind was going through
Yeah.
in order to
Absolutely.
receive that.
Yeah.
And so, again, for me, by the time I was 12, I hated God. Um, I didn't feel at the time that God worked for me.
Right.
And so
Right.
to me, that made God a lie.
Yeah. And You didn't even realize that maybe he wasn't even real. You're like, is he really even real? Did they make this up? Is it imaginary? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, because at that age, you're forming imagination,
Right.
right? You're
Right.
forming imagination. You're forming, your creative side. You're forming all of that,
Mm-hmm.
and to have that God part of it kind of ripped from you,
Mm-hmm.
you lose all imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And imagination is the piece that has to do with believing in yourself,
Dreamer.
believing in the future, believing
Mm-hmm.
that you can do all these amazing, giving yourself confidence. That's all imagination. That's
Right.
all creation.
Right.
And so you lose that. And that's another critical piece too.
Right. It took me a long time to tap back into that.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
I would
Yeah.
probably say I was in my mid 30s, right around 32, before my
Hmm.
light came back on.
Yeah.
But by then, I had fought to survive my household.
Hmm.
I got married young, thinking, well, if I got married, then that would somehow rectify
Yeah.
my life with God. And I end up marrying an abuser
Hmm.
and cheater. Um, then I became a single mother. Then I became let me try to say this safely for YouTube. I became a street pharmaceutical transport logistics manager. It was either that or strip.
Right.
At the time, I didn't have the body to strip, so I chose the other lifestyle that
Right.
would bring me money, and just by the grace of God, I was covered.
Right.
I remember there was a big big deal that was going to go down, and the person who I was transporting for
Hmm.
knew I was in college, and I begged that I can take my final later. I
Right.
need money. Let me go
Right.
on this trip.
Right.
And so she said, "No, you're too smart. You need to go to school and finish your final. I'll take care of you." And I
Hmm.
was mad because I didn't know what "I'll take care of you" meant. Like
Right.
I didn't understand that.
Right.
So she happened to be the biggest female dealer
Hmm.
in California at the time.
Hmm.
The night I took my final, her and about 23 other people were cracked between five houses. So they raided all five houses at one time.
Wow.
The only reason why I did not go to jail is because I was at school taking my final.
Right.
So there, even in my anger with God at the time, feeling like I could do everything by myself, I don't
Right.
need you. I'll figure out life by myself. Now looking back, I realized I was still being covered.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely
Absolutely.
still being covered. So now I can go back and I can say thank you.
Right.
But I didn't feel a thank you in my spirit at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. You don't see that. You don't see any of that. So all of the situations you've been through
Mhm,
with both men and women
mhm,
pastors, how did you this devastating betrayal of trust? How did from the highest form of
mhm,
people?
mhm.
How did you be able to discern genuine faith or
Gotcha.
safety?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. And let me tell you why that's good. Because actually, in my young years, I was in church, and then up until my late or early 30s, I
Hmm.
hated church,
Hmm.
and so I was doing stuff in the streets. And then when I came back to church, by the way, I wanted to hear a choir.
Right.
One day, I just had a fit. I just wanted to hear a choir sing. I wanted to hear
Yeah.
organ. And so I randomly went to a church and sat in the back, and there was a little boy that was about 4 years old, and he hopped down from with his mother. Never seen him before, and he stuck his arm in my face and was like, "Smell my arm. I took a bath." I played with the little boy the whole church service, and I went back the next Sunday to play with the little boy again.
Hmm.
So my invitation to Christ came through a 3 or 4 year old having me smell his arm because he took a bath, and that's how I kind of got hooked back in, right? I'm thinking by then, church has changed. You know what I mean? People are different. People can see. And I did not understand, or I did not know at that time. Me coming back in the church was almost just as bad in some areas as if I had stayed out in the street. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's not in just the beginning of me
Yeah.
serving in ministry. That hadn't been too long ago either. There's been some times and been some things that I have been exposed to as an armor bearer now for over 20 years, as a leader in ministry for over 20 years, that I have seen
Yeah.
that go on in the background that make me feel like I am safer being a
In the street.
transporter.
Yeah. In the street. Right. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh.
And so my change came from, at some point, out of all of the situations that were occurring between me actually making the deal with myself that I really, really wanted to heal for real. I noticed that the common denominator of each one of my situations was me.
Right.
Now, there were some things that happened to me in my childhood that I have no control over, had no
Mm-hmm.
control over.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody else has to answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got older, the things that I did have control over, that stuff fell on me.
Right.
So I developed a plan of radical self awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and radical self accountability. Now, has it
Yeah.
always worked? I'm gonna be honest with you and tell you no. There have been times where I have slipped. There have been times where I have fallen on my butt. There have been situations where I ended up on my face before God, crying and bare knuckles, white knuckles, bloody trail.
Mm-hmm.
So has it always worked? No. But over time,
Right.
the old people used to say, when you know better, you do better.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They still say it. Okay. So I wanted to talk about your ultimate revelation. Healing doesn't mean hating the church. It means reclaiming your voice. Can
Yes,
we talk about that?
yes. So now I like to say, heal people. We fact check before we feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and here's what I mean, and that goes for the church too.
Right.
I've
Sure.
I've encountered situations I didn't realize, pastors and prophets and preachers lie as much as they do. I did not realize. I just didn't. I didn't. I did not realize, that after someone would actually take the oath to say, "I am a fisherman for Christ," that
Yeah.
somehow it would turn into a pulpit for profit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that this happened. I thought once you made a commitment, you made it with integrity, and that's how you lived your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that all pastors are bad. I know some great
Right.
pastors.
Right.
I know some great prophets. I know some great leaders, some great teachers.
Mm-hmm.
But I have also seen it the other way,
Yeah.
as well. And what I came to in that revelation is there is duality, because I kept praying. I would spend. If I show you my Bible was torn up because I would read. I would wrestle with the text. I've actually taken my Bible and thrown it across the room because I'm frustrated. Right? Like, if you be God, if you be the way maker, if you be the water
Mm.
walker, if you went up on Calvary and you rose on the third day, then why are we still dealing with the same stuff that has always been around? And so what I
Mm-hmm.
came up with the revelation, there's duality. As long as you have a up, there must be a down. If you
Right.
have in, there's an out.
Right.
Light, day.
Right.
So these, unfortunately, types of behaviors and characteristics in people will always be around. They're not going to go away. So what we have to do, as healed people, as people in the journey of healing, as the people who aren't afraid to speak out, like this platform,
Okay.
we
Right.
have a conversation, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've probably gotten comments, unchurched, what is that? Where we're not afraid to have conversations, the hard conversations,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
so we can
That's what it's
show
about. Yep.
and lead other people where they're not being, caught in the same bear traps.
Mm. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. we often there's a picture that I've seen. It's a post, or it might be something somebody drew, and there's like this line of people, like there's a bunch of people. It's a line of people like this, and then there's a divider, and
Hmm.
you see somebody walking. They're pointed this way, and then you see somebody walking this way, and there's only one person,
Right.
and it's supposed to depict what we all are supposed to be doing. We shouldn't be with the collective.
Hmm.
We should be on the assignment,
Hmm.
you know, and that's what we kind of get lost because we don't feel safe, let's say, in our homes.
Hmm.
I know for me, I went to church because I didn't feel safe in my home.
Hmm.
You know, I was looking for something else. I was looking for safety. I was looking for um, a father figure. I was looking
Hmm.
for a mother figure. I was looking for some people or to belong.
Hmm.
You know, and then you end up belonging, and you see the signs, but you ignore them
Right.
a lot of times.
That's a trauma response.
Hmm. A lot of
That
times.
is absolutely a trauma response.
Hmm.
So this is what I teach. And this is my talking point for that, because what I realized, in the word says it also, um, and even though I have, prophet in front of my name, I'm not God.
Right.
And neither is any man or any woman that's holding the microphone, even if they say God said, because
Right.
that's most of the time a lie.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Most of the time.
I see, and most of the time
You
a
said,
lie.
I said, yeah.
That's
Like Paul said, right?
yeah.
I said, he said, they, you know, this may be, this what may happen, but I said, this is what I'm saying.
What I teach is get the information for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Like never
Yeah.
and never trust anybody else's research
Yeah.
except your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Vet.
Right.
So we should be vetting the people that we listening to. Don't have itchy ears.
Right.
If you're in a space where you need that much confirmation, whether you need that much validation, um, then there may be some things about yourself that you want to self check, in
Hmm.
order to make sure that your core is correct. And
Right.
it may not necessarily come from church. It may come from a couch.
Right.
You
Yeah.
may be looking the wrong direction.
Right.
Um, so those are the things that I tell people. You don't
Yeah.
make another man God, because then you make that person an idol.
That's
And so
correct.
there's a difference between respecting the leader, which should be reciprocal, by the way.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's a difference between respecting the leader and then worshiping and idolizing a
Hmm.
title.
That's right. That's right. So that phrase kind of turns you, you know, was a turning point for your book. Read me for filth.
Hmm.
How to drag yourself out of your own bullshit.
Hmm.
So how does that serve? How does that give other people the vocal freedom?
Hmm. So I used to ghostwrite for several people,
Okay.
prominently pastors, right?
Okay.
Um, when you have low self-esteem, and when you're looking for a place to be validated because you've never been validated, then oftentimes you will put yourself in positions to be used,
Mm.
um, to be exploited.
Right.
And one of the themes that runs for us in our culture is, if you struggle now, and if you give until your cup cracks now
Right.
for free,
Yeah.
then you'll get rewarded later.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you're building up people, while you're still here.
Hmm.
And so I was ghostwriting for several people, and I would have this funny phrase. Now it's funny to me, but I really lived by this, that I was a strong neck. Like I didn't want to be a head. Like I didn't want to be the head. I could function. I could do all the things that were required to be done to run a church, but I didn't want to be the head. I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be the front. I could just be a strong support. And after a while, I came to the realization that the same effort that I was putting into other people, that I could put it into myself.
Yeah.
And there is no such thing as, if you struggle now, um, until your cup cracks, until you give of yourself, until you have nothing else. that you're going to somehow benefit from that later.
Nope.
That is leech mentality.
Yeah.
That is abuse, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's narcissistic
Yep.
spiritually.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
so our relationships should be reciprocal. That's what led me into writing my first published book under my name, and it came from me dragging having to read myself. You know how you say you got to read. I read you. So I was like, no, okay, well, you need to sit down and read yourself. Like,
Yep.
what is it about you that
Yeah.
you're now at this point in your life, and you're still going through some of the same traumatic things with leaders? Now, it may not be physical abuse, but the mental abuse, the giving away of your ideas and your babies to other people, and then they mishandle, abuse, or
Right.
abort,
Yep.
and then you're trying to figure out why you're not moving forward or why you're not on a different level
That
of
that
leadership.
right there. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so I sat down and I looked and I said, okay, well, the same effort that I am putting into others um, is not a self care is not selfish. Um, and self care can be more than just buying roses for yourself. Those
Exactly.
are those are your going back and getting your dreams, going back
Mm-hmm.
and getting your babies, going back and um, finding out what your heart's desire is.
Right.
Because we like to make people work mules when it works for us. Um, and then when it's not working for us, then we call them witches, Jezebels,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
whores, rebellious, all those names
All
that
those.
we
Right.
like to call people over the mic when they stop doing what we want them to do.
That's right. That's right. So I want to talk about your upcoming book that exposes spiritual narcissism, and I think
Mhm.
that's going to be one of our topics as well,
Okay.
um, and manipulation
Hmm.
from the other side of the desk.
Hmm.
Can you help our listeners understand what the form of psychiatric, you know, look it is, and how the spiritual control looks like in a
Sure.
practice?
Sure.
Hmm.
So actually, that book will be released February 14th. That would be my third book. So
Okay.
it's called, that's the second edition to Read Me Fulfilled.
Okay.
That's the second installment of that. And so it's called Read Me Fulfilled, Relationships and the Bloody Trail, How to Escape the Powers of Spiritual Narcissism.
Okay.
And so I think I'm almost an expert in that area now. Because spiritual narcissism is I think, one of the worst forms of narcissism.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's one of the worst forms of narcissism because when you have a spiritual narcissist, then they mishandle, mistreat, and misguide, but they do it under the guise of God.
God. Yep.
God told me to tell you this,
Yep.
or God said this. Um, so for me, spiritual narcissism
Hmm.
has a little bit more in a way of being able to hurt more masses of people. Because at that point, you give somebody on the ego trip a microphone, and then so it turns from ministry to manipulation. And to me, that is one of the worst, most vile forms of manipulation. Manipulation is to get on the mic and instead of going to somebody's couch and getting therapy. And so there are some things that I talk about in the book that are very touchy subjects.
Hmm.
Like I have a chapter called "Loving a Therapist Who Needs Therapy."
Cool.
And so you have pastors who preach one thing in the pulpit,
And
and
there's another.
they appear one way.
Yeah.
They appear holy. They appear righteous. They appear intelligent
Hmm.
as they're traveling the world, um, giving false intellect.
Hmm.
And you never know they have an issue unless you're riding in the car with them,
Yep.
and they're talking about everybody who they just preached for.
Hmm.
Or the sermons revert back to them. I prayed and got them out of cancer. I prayed and their business is successful. I did this and I did
Hmm.
that. It doesn't
Right.
lead back to God, it leads back to ego.
Yeah.
So for that's a self-esteem issue. But a lot of times with narcissism, it's so covert, the public will never know.
Oh yeah.
only people that are close knit. I call them flying monkeys. That's what
Hmm.
they call. And even if you know, you may not, you may agree. Even, well, and I think agreeing to a certain degree, if you agree by proximity. I'll give you an example. If I know because I'm traveling with you that you are standing in the pulpit telling a flat foot lie,
Hmm.
and I keep traveling with you, then now I'm in proximity of your lie.
Yeah.
I am now supporting you in
Yeah.
your.
You're complicit in it. Yeah.
I am
Hmm.
complicit in my silence.
Hmm.
And one thing that a narcissist hates is accountability, and
Yeah.
spiritual narcissists hated accountability even more because they feel like they're backed by God.
That's right.
So especially in our culture, you're not supposed to question. You
Not
can't
at all.
pastor. You can't question the prophet. You can't question anybody who has a title because they were sent by God.
Hmm.
So to question them, you are somehow now questioning God.
Right.
And that's one thing now that I will say wherever I go again, they are not God. And even God doesn't have a problem with being questioned. You can ask
Hmm.
God a question. So if I can ask God a question, surely then
I
I
can
should
ask
be able
you.
to ask you. But with a spiritual narcissist, again, as soon as you begin asking any type of questions that hold them accountable or hold feet to the fire,
Yeah.
then you become the villain and you become the problem. So that's why it's important to vet.
That's it. That's it. That's good stuff. We're coming close to the hour to the close, but I want you to give any, a step for the audience to take that to begin their self journey, their journey to self reclamation, and just so they can start reclaiming their lives.
So the first thing I would want to say is welcome, welcome. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of times we get stuck in a perpetual cycle of healing. We're always healing. I'm healing. I'm healing. And what I encourage is to do the good work and journey from healing to
Hmm.
actually healed.
Yes.
This is a hard work.
Oh yeah.
This is a hard work.
Oh yeah.
Accept that. Accept that it's not going to be easy, but it's worth it. And so, what happens in this journey from healing to heal? I would say the first realization that you would want to come to is the fact that it's just you. It's just you. At the end of the day, we came here by ourselves, and we're going to leave here by ourselves.
Yeah. Oh, people say that too.
You know? And if you believe in judgment and that kind of thing, then you'll be judged by yourself.
Hmm.
I think a lot of times we move around from situation to situation, from relationship to relationship, from church to church, from
Hmm.
ship to ship, whatever kind of ship it is,
Hmm.
because we don't want to sit down with ourselves,
Right.
because we don't want to face ourselves. So my advice and what I would say would be my altar call coming up on this hour is if you're actually ready to really heal for real, understand that this is going to be a lonely moment. It's going to be a lonely moment for a minute, right?
Yeah.
Because there are some things that you have to adjust about your core, and nobody else can adjust it for you. Even now in my business, part of my business is being a total restoration architect, which I finished fashion school, and so I was doing external branding and styling, and so I merged that with my ministry, and so now it's the restoration from the inside out. So even in that situation where you have a therapist and a counselor, the therapist, the counselor, the pastor, the prophet, the preacher, none of us can do the work for you. And if anybody is presenting themselves like they can just pray you out, they can just bring you out or just cancel you out, that is somebody who is dealing with the Messiah Savior complex. They cannot.
Hmm.
This is a work that you have to do by yourself,
Yeah.
not by yourself, but for yourself. So
Right.
someone can midwife you through the process, but they can't birth you for you. You have to birth you for yourself.
That's right. That's beautiful. I love that. Love that. We've reached the end of another powerful episode, audience, and we want to thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I want to extend a deep thank you to our prophet Harmony for sharing her courage and her framework for identifying and healing from spiritual narcissism. Your message is clear. I hope you heard it, audience. Healing means reclaiming your voice. If you found hope in Prophet Harmony's words today, look in the comments section and you'll find all of her information so that you can get in contact with her. So take a moment to subscribe and like and even download this episode and share it with other people. Your support helps us continue to shed the light on these necessary topics. And remember, your story is your power, just like the story of Prophet Harmony. We'll be back next week with more truth and more freedom. Bye for now.